Dynamite download.
AEW 2020, John Silver.
Special event, as you can see, SPD.
For a smashing good time. January recruitment month.
Come along, I come along in the ring.
I mean, I would not want to. I would not. We got great this year at SPD. Boy, weird.
Yo, yo, yo.
What's up, dude?
I got my danglies on.
Oh. Oh my God! Do you ever?
Look at these danglies.
Man, the Bucks would be so proud of you. Wow!
Oh my
gosh!
gosh.
Let's see those. Let's see
Look
those.
at, all right, so I got these danglies from my shades. And in my ear here.
Oh man, the Good
The
Brothers,
danglies.
the Bucks, they would be so proud of you right now.
They're
dude.
jelly.
I love
Big
it. I
Bonds
love it.
Well, shirt. I got my shirt hanging up here. You see that?
Nice.
There we
I'm
go.
rocking mine. I love it. I love the shirts, brother. I'm eager to go to another AEW show and throw these bad boys on and represent and get the double bird salute from our guy MJF. I'm really looking forward to that.
The double bird salute.
Oh, you
there
know
we
it.
go.
You know it.
I can't wait, man. And I know that's a good Sharonica, and hopefully we can figure some things out, like and do like a show very soon, and
Bro, how
maybe
sweet
tie
would
into
it have
the
been,
taco
but-
festival, man.
Oh. Well, I mean, I wish we could be at Double or Nothing. I mean, that show
know.
is absolutely, and we're going to talk a lot about that tonight because
Yeah.
I think that the show that event is starting to take, kind of get that frame of what we're expecting and starting to come into like a little clearer of a picture. I think the world champion is going to have a title contender that's going to emerge soon.
Mhm.
We know that the AEW women's champion is going to be defending her belt against the DMD. There's a lot that's going to be coming out of this, and we also see the tag titles kind of getting a little clearer focus too. So a lot came out of Blood and Guts, which felt like a mini. Oh
Yeah.
wait, Blood and Guts was the word of the night.
Hold on, that is true. We are doing that.
And I better be careful. I better be careful because I'm rocking for those beer aficionados out there. CBS is no joke.
Is that a 10%er?
It is. It's a heavy hitter. This is a very fancy Michigan beer. I very highly recommend
this bottle
Founders
opener sucks.
CBS. They age this breakfast stout in not only maple syrup, but they age it in Canadian whiskey barrels. So it's really heavy hitter, good stuff, brother. What do you got? A little IPA. You love your IPA, don't you, brother?
Being out in Utah, this is a Utah brewery, so it's a Trader IPA.
Ooh, you're gonna hear Crayfish is well known for his smucks. I'm gonna be smucking this CBS all night. But that sip came from on the precipice of really that last show, AEW Dynamite, felt like a pay-per-view. And
It really was. A
next
pay-per-view
week's
worthy
show,
card.
I'm already, dude, I know. And next week's show, I'm plugged in on, I love just more than anything, the best thing about Twitter, sometimes I try my best to just not engage in some of the back and forth and like all that stuff that goes on Twitter. But I do love just feeling the pulse of the wrestling community.
Mm-hmm.
I love seeing it. And you could tell a lot of folks are beaming SPD about next week's show. Next week's show already feels like a pay-per-view too, man. It's like every single Dynamite lately has just been absolutely killing it. So a lot to discuss tonight. Really excited to get into it with you, man.
And
How's
yeah,
your- how was your week,
I know
bro?
we were gonna have you do the danglies, but I did the danglies. So the dangly today. Speaking
I'm
of,
proud of you. I'm very proud of you for representing.
if you could tell, these are some danglies for sure. But speaking of, we can briefly talk about next week's card. I know we ended our Dynamite download episode 33, baby, after Blood and Guts.
Oh man,
of what we were looking forward to, and then now you have a few days to digest. Essentially,
Mm-hmm.
like, you still looking forward to that Orange Cassidy Pac match or what?
Oh yeah, man. You know, and what's great too is every time, like every day that goes by, the new stuff happens in wrestling that gets me thinking about different things about what we talked about. And you know, I was just watching the Dark Side of the Ring this last episode with Brian Pillman, the first episode of the new season.
Right.
It just gets you thinking about the landscape of professional wrestling. And you know, I talked about Pac being on my Mount Rushmore, but man, watching Steve Austin and what he did with Brian Pillman and the legacy that he left behind, there's so many names that come to mind. But I'm standing firm. I love my guy Pac. I'm really geeked out about this match. You know, more than anything, SPD, even more than the Pac versus Orange Cassidy match, which, you know, I tend to think, you know, I'm with the wrestling community. I think that Orange Cassidy is kind of, the writing is on the wall that he's going to be the next guy that emerges. But more than the match itself, dude, I'm geeking out about that Kenny promo. I'm geeking about that promo,
dude, that was great.
Because Kenny really acknowledged Pac as a peer. And that goes a long way, especially given Kenny's gimmick right now. Kenny's shtick right now is he's the belt collector. I mean, I was watching Impact, which was, you know, again, I know that it's sometimes it's hard to get into the full episode of Impact. It just the vibe isn't the same, as the energy level isn't the same as AEW. But I was watching Impact, and I thought that, like, even during that show, the whole time was like they had to beg him to come to the show as part of his contractual obligation as the champ to be there. And you know, I just think that, like, with Kenny's bravado, with his brash ego, and with this, and well deserved, but it was such a breath of fresh air as a Pac fanboy. I felt like just invigorated again, and you could tell Dynamite Download, we were trending on Twitter a lot today. Because I just feel rejuvenated as a fan. When you get to see when your favorite gets mentioned by the champ as a peer, and Kenny acknowledged that Pac beat him. And you could tell Kenny doesn't want any part of Pac. So
no, and that would be so fun to watch down the line again. I mean, it's one of those things, you know, we had a fan question on our Twitter saying, like, well, how would you build Kenny Omega's title reign until, you know, essentially meeting up with Hangman? You know, like, how would you build it, you know, until Hangman wins? So I guess we can kind of go through that. That's a good place to start.
It is.
Because, you know, the Pac OC, obviously, just based on that fire promo, and Bonds pointed it out. He pays attention to a lot of the details, how Tony Schiavone was kind of pissed and, like, kept trying to grab the mic away from him. And I didn't notice that. I had to rewatch it. And then you could see Tony Schiavone,
or just read Bonds' column, you know.
You could just see him reaching for that the microphone multiple times. But Kenny's promo was great. It deserved every little bit that he had, or every minute and second that he had, and it makes you excited for an OC Kenny match. Like, obviously Pac and Kenny will be Dynamite, but there's not enough build right now. They built the OC match in 3-minute segment where it's exciting and ready for Double or Nothing, essentially. So, yes, we will see OC versus Kenny for the time being, which you kind of predicted a few weeks ago. It would be kind of a nice transition sense. And then after OC, you know, I think you could see Eddie Kingston get another title shot, possibly. And then after that, it's really hard to predict, you know.
That's a good call.
Like, who do you see, if you could, without overthinking of it, like the next 4 or 5 contenders for Kenny Omega? I mean, things change so rapidly on the landscape of AEW, but we're talking OC, and then I would go Kingston. Then you could probably, man, that's so tough. You could maybe just throw Jungle Boy in there. What do you think?
Well, I'm like, secretly deep down inside, I'm actually kind of happy that Pac, I don't feel like he's going to get this title shot right now. I feel like Kenny, I'm right there with you, SPD. You said at the beginning of the year, this is going to be the year of Kenny Omega. He's going to run this show for a long time, and he's going to really be at the top of professional wrestling. He's not going anywhere for a while. That said, so I kind of want my guy protected, my favorite guy protected. So I actually think Orange Cassidy is a really nice fit here because it's a win-win, right?
Right.
And Orange Cassidy's going to go in there. He's going to look like $1 million going against Kenny, right? He's going to and just getting that rub, like I talked about at Dynamite Download. When you look at the path for Orange Cassidy, you're going to see he's going to fight Pac, and then he's going to fight Kenny. What an amazing opportunity for this guy to just absolutely show what he's capable of. And I think that that's really important for Orange Cassidy, given what you said. He was starting to become a C player in your words. So I think that it's really important that they put that spotlight back on Orange Cassidy, especially given all the work that they did last year, especially with the feud with Jericho to establish him. This is going to really go a long way in building Orange Cassidy up again. So I like that. But I do think that Kenny's going to come out on top.
For sure.
I think that what would be a nice transition. You have to hold off on that Hangman shot down. I really think that like you mentioned, kind of have some guys in that get those title opportunities
for sure.
That are nice challengers, but aren't going to take the gold off of them. So, but I do think that if you're going to put me up against it, I think that. Oh, man, because I would love to see MJF get a title shot too, man. I really would love to see that, but I think if MJF gets the shot, he can't go 0-2 in those big moments, right?
It's not right. I mean, yes, obviously it would be nice to have MJF, but it's just not the timing right now. Not needed either.
Yeah.
What are some convincing baby faces that you want to see go against Kenny other than, like the aforementioned Orange Cassidy, down the line, maybe Pac again, but Eddie Kingston, Jungle Boy.
Kingston,
they're like
Moxley
legit worthy of a shot.
Yeah, I mean, Kingston's obviously still in the title race, and he's not like he's the Mad King, and he's not. I mean, that dude when he's dialed in and he's locked into somebody. We've seen Eddie Kingston, that brawler mentality that he has. He's not going to let go. He's not going to just let a feud die. So he wants a part of Kenny. I think that that's a good call by you.
Oh, that's a good one right here. Ray Phoenix again.
That'd be nice too.
I was there for that Ray Phoenix Kenny Omega match, and that was January 6th live. And I tell you what, man, that was probably one of the best matches I've ever seen in my entire life. And that is we haven't seen Phoenix in a while.
No, and you're starting to see a couple names float out there in the chat, and I love the fans getting involved here.
Yeah.
I also, one of the first names that came to mind was Huss Gamer threw this out there, Darby.
Okay.
For me, Darby, I believe that Darby is gonna drop the belt to Miro. I think all of us on Team Dynamite Download are.
We gotta wait to talk about that with Bonds.
Yeah, I will hold off on the excitement about Miro and all the really anticipation for what's going to happen with Miro. But I think that would be a nice little get Darby a shot. He obviously has that natural baby face, and can you imagine him eating a V trigger from Kenny Omega? Oh. The way that Darby, like his size and the way that he sells, I think Darby would take that like a bullet to the head. I mean, that guy would just absolutely sell and put over the champ. I think that it would also be kind of cool for Kenny's run, not dissimilar to what we saw from the Young Bucks. If you started to see some of those non-traditional challengers get a shot. I mean, I see some people throwing out there Preston Vance,
yes.
10 when he had that shot against Darby. I think that was an absolutely incredible main event. I thought that 10 with that finish, like locking in the full Nelson and Darby kind of jumping off of the turnbuckles into leaning into that kind of roll-up victory, which I know you loved. I think that like some non-traditional names would be really nice. And I think that you mentioned Jungle Boy. That's a great name too. JR. Yeah. JR's been pushing, and every time that Jungle Boy's on television, JR is just absolutely hammering home the point that this kid has a future as a champion. That would be a really nice little babyface shot, and it would obviously, if Jungle Boy came up short, it would still be one of those moments where you say, wow, he came up short, but this short against one of the best guys on the whole planet. And that would really be a feather in Jungle Boy's cap and could maybe plant some seeds for further like opportunity for Jungle Boy down the road. So I like that idea. That said, it's hard, man, because I think that like AEW, Cody is one of the key guys as far as baby faces in this company. And that contractually, based off of what happened, he's not going to get an opportunity to fight for the world championship. Who are those top baby faces? And I think that's one of the reasons why Kenny's title reign has been a little odd, is that he doesn't have those
other than
Moxley.
Yeah, I mean, he's
right.
like
but how many times are you going to run Moxley versus Kenny? Right. I mean,
you could over and over, and it'll be a home run. But yes, it's nice to have fresh feuds. I mean, obviously, it goes without saying, Lance Archer, which we were hoping that he would kind of swerve into that title picture, but then he kind of did a 180 and the whole Sting kind of thing going on that he's involved in, which is still very exciting. But I think, kind of like a wild card, which we saw work versus MJF, the heel versus heel kind of battle would be Max Caster. So if you do this build,
listen to you. Wow, I've got you so far on the Acclaim now.
You do, and so I think
you want to see Max against the. Wow,
I think like that build, and like you could have a couple weeks build, just the
promo
battles
there, brother,
and then you can have a couple tag matches going, and then that would just be the ascension of them turning babyface. Essentially, like it's the anti heel, but it's the one that like you want to hate but you root for so much that they turn babyface just organically.
The Acclaimed kind of have that vibe, don't they? Because they're so charismatic and funny that you're gonna root for them, right? I hear you, man. That is fascinating. What a 180 you've taken on the Acclaimed.
What, you like my danglies?
Welcome, Bonds. We're gonna say blood and guts right now, just so we can all cheers. Welcome to the party, Bonds. You had so many people in the chat just clamoring for our head writer to get in here. We were holding off on talking Miro. It's bad luck if you don't drink after a cheers. So to all you guys out there, this was a hard-earned week for Crayfish. So I need a one.
Cheers to the weekend for sure.
Sorry, Omega show, guys. Like AEW's officials this week, I missed a little bit of the action, but I'm here now and everything will be fine.
That's all that matters.
Yep.
Bonds, real quick, like to get you up to speed, we were talking about kind of booking Kenny Omega's next kind of 3, 4, 5 opponents down the line before ultimately facing Hangman Adam Page.
Right.
We all confidently could say, like, obviously Orange Cassidy, just based on that kind of promo battle and hype is already set there. Mentioned like Eddie Kingston, Jungle Boy possibly. And then I threw a wild card in just at the cusp was Max Caster. If you did heel versus heel,
I like that.
So you can have these two like extremely gifted guys on the mic that can really throw some awesome jabs, and then you ultimately the Acclaim will slowly turn babyface. But like, who do you kind of see? Yeah, I'm curious to hear.
I see Christian Cage also. I mean, just to throw that name out there, I think that Christian's eventually going to get that. And they planted the seeds early on when he debuted. I could see Christian getting that, and that's another guy, right? Like when you're naming people who could be the challenger, I think all of us here at Dynamite Download agree it has to be someone who either is getting a rub just from being in the ring with Kenny and getting that opportunity, or someone who's so protected as like an established star that losing to Kenny isn't going to hurt them. And so Christian falls into that second category. Bonds, who are a couple names that jump out to you other than, I mean, I know that you would love to see Miro win the TNT title and the world championship. You're like, but who are some names that jump out to you?
And the tag titles by himself. He can just go there and beat the Young Bucks up.
Why not?
Somebody I'd like to see against Kenny is Brian Cage. I think that him beating Hangman last week was pretty cool. And like, he beat the number one contender, or the former number one contender, knocked him down off that spot.
Great call.
And that was a big win. And I think that would be a really cool match. Just like a very different dynamic. There's not many times where Kenny goes into a match like it's such a physical underdog.
Yep.
And I think that it could play for some really interesting stuff, storyline as well.
That's a great call too. And it would naturally set up like the dynamic of the Elite versus Team Taz, and would Team Taz have Cage's back and all of those things, man. I love that idea, especially after that massive W that Cage had. He's kind of been off television, out of sight, out of mind since that massive win. That's a great call by you. I really think that that's a natural transition. And we know that those guys could put on a clinic, right? I mean, that would be an awesome matchup. I love that idea. Any other names that jump out to you?
Off the top of my head,
way to put you on the spot.
Pac would be great, but they're already setting that up, and I think it's going to be Orange Cassidy just based on the promo. But maybe down the line they could do that later. Obviously, he's beaten Kenny, so that would be really cool. Again, you could put some of the fear of God into Kenny a little bit. Like, he even complimented Pac. He's like, yeah, he's actually beaten me. Like, this guy's somebody who I tapped out to. Like, come on.
True.
I know.
Cool.
I was telling SPD before you joined us, I was telling him, like, more than the match next week, I just loved, as a Pac fanboy, just as a total geek for him, I was just loving the champ who never puts anybody over. Really, that dude thinks that his shit doesn't stink, right? He's walking around talking the talk. But for him to put over Pac that way, I was just geeking out, man. I love that promo. I know that it ran long. I know in the column you pointed it out. Blood and guts.
Oh, cheers.
The Pinnacle versus the Inner Circle match kind of got squeezed a little bit. Some of it felt like because of Kenny's promo, but man, was it nice hearing him just absolutely roast Orange Cassidy. I mean, that was an epic promo and just shredded that guy. But then also putting Pac over that way and really establishing him as an equal. AEW needs more of that, right? I feel like you and I have talked a lot about this, Bonds, as you and I have gone over your column over the weeks. Really, AEW needs to establish more clear-cut baby faces in the upper echelon, not only in the men's division, but in the women's division too. And this is something that I wanted to transition into, is the Jade Cargill situation. Next week, we're gonna hear from Jade. And SPD, you mentioned, some characters like Max Caster who are just naturally so charismatic that even though they're heels, fans are starting to rally behind them. And I think that Jade is a perfect example of that in the women's division. And so is the DMD. I know that I'm not alone out there. When I heard that pop, when the DMD was announced as the next challenger for Double or Nothing, there are some characters that are the heels or the bad guys in this company that are just naturally endearing themselves to us as fans. And I really believe we here at Dynamite Download have said it from day one. The minute we saw Jade on screen, that is a superstar. That is somebody who carries herself like a superstar. And I think that Jade's natural confidence, although she has some of that edge and that nastiness to her, is starting to endear her to like some fans out there. And I think that, depending on how Jade does this and plays this, she could emerge as somebody who could potentially be like a big time player, as a maybe like one of those tweener characters who's not really a heel, not really a babyface, just bets on herself, but gets people to naturally cheer for her. Where do you guys see this promo going next week? Obviously, there's going to be some conversation about what nail color she has. That was a big topic on Twitter today. Dynamite Download.
I noticed that we
chatted on that. I was all in on that today. I was really loving that conversation.
No, she's been great to us all the way. She's really good with her fans,
person.
Very appreciative. Yeah, and such a hardworking. And I'm excited. It's like there's so much going on the landscape of AEW right now. It's as always it's like, how do you fit everything in, man? There's so many feuds that you want to see continue. And unfortunately, it seems like, the women's division does get the short end of the stick a lot of times, but I think we're slowly starting to see that grow a little bit more, and then hopefully even more when they add an extra hour of TV. But this has to build to a match at Double or Nothing. So someone's got to come out and interrupt. Someone's got to come out, or she's got to call someone out. And so who that would be, obviously, our dream opponent would be Statlander, because two big powerhouses, huge babyface and great heel.
Wow, you're gonna man, dude.
It could be like, well, then you have a battle of like, if you put that at Double or Nothing, those two women's matches, like, both are equally as exciting. Like a toss-up, obviously, we're huge DMD fans and the title's on the line, but on paper, like, we want to see those as equally as much, you know.
And Jade versus Chris feels like two stars going this way, right? Both are just absolutely ascending. That would be tough, man. Like, that would be really tough to see, like, especially with the way Jade's been built, right? All of her matches at this point, all of her performances have been Goldberg-esque. They've been absolutely dominant. But do you allow her to go into that matchup with Statlander? And if you booked it that way, booking by Bonds, do you agree with SPD's proposal for that? Like, where do you see, I guess, first, what do you think Jade's going to talk about next, this upcoming Dynamite? And where do you see her? Do you see her having a role on Double or Nothing? And how would you book that?
I think that she's going to talk about the manager situation. I think that's kind of where it's definitely going.
That thing's
she's going to talk about that manager situation.
Come on, SPD, let him talk.
Don't think it's going to be what we want, because, like, I don't think she needs one.
We all agree.
Like, yeah, she doesn't need a manager. I think she's great on her own. But again, if it's just somebody in the background, kind of like, you know, like Rebel, like doing that kind of stuff with like Britt, that might work. You know, if it's more like that, where it's kind of 80%, you know, Jade still. I think that would be more interesting. And I don't. Again, she's good on the mic. She doesn't need somebody talking for her. It just will take away from her character and her development. And I don't think it's necessary. But if there is, you know, something coming up for her in the pay-per-view, I'd love to see Statlander. That's like our dream matchup. We've talked about that for weeks on here. I think it's a good matchup just physically. Again, like you were saying, physical matchup. They're both powerhouses.
They are presented. They could be presented as equals, right? And that's the beautiful.
That's the problem. I don't know if you want to put somebody in there with Jade yet.
SPD, what are you doing?
Physically,
go on.
Yeah, what are you doing?
I'm tweeting out Young Bucks with the danglies.
Okay,
I'm listening.
Bonds is mid, and he's right.
I'm listening.
Mean, Bonds, that's where I'm torn, right? SPD's idea about like Statlander, it's exciting as a fan, no doubt, right? Like these two could be presented as the two powerhouses of the division and absolutely look like equals. Statlander, since she's come back, like she was ragdolling Penelope Ford in that match, just absolutely beating her down, right?
Yeah.
But I wonder, like, I just feel like, do you put those two this soon in their trajectory that way, or do you continue to build Jade as that powerhouse? I'm kind of feeling like Pen here. Yeah. I feel like I feel like you got to let Statlander's growth kind of build a little bit more in that way. And I feel like obviously it would be a huge win for Jade if she beats Statlander, but I think
put Statlander in the doghouse immediately for no reason.
Right. I think that there are other opportunities out there. There are other challengers that would be maybe a better fit.
True.
You can't have too many sacrificial lambs for Jade that are people that you're banking on to be the future of your division.
Mm-hmm. Who do you think would be a next competitor for her?
Given the landscape?
Yeah, right now.
I think like there's no story to it, but I think like a Rio Mizunami would be an interesting matchup. And I would love to see Riho. Like I miss Riho. I think that Riho would be an awesome. I love that like physical, like big Jade would be able to have that, but that like kind of like what we saw with Jade versus Red Velvet, but like elevated another notch, right? Where it's like, okay, Riho was like a former champion, the first women's champion. Like she's clearly like one of the top stars in women's wrestling as far as globally. Mm-hmm. I think that would be a really cool matchup. I don't know where the COVID and all that stuff has to do with it, but I would play more into that Red Velvet vibe where it's like, okay, having somebody who Jade could still ragdoll and establish that, and keep leaning into that aesthetic a little bit until Jade finally is met with somebody like a Nyla or a Statlander or somebody like that. I think it's too soon to have that kind of matchup personally. Now I would love to see it. I mean, if Chris was out there saying Nyla is a great opportunity, right? Nyla has been, in my opinion, Nyla has been presented as the gatekeeper of the women's division. You're not an established powerhouse or an established superstar until you beat her. I would keep Ty Conti away from Jade. Again, I think that Ty is kind of built as her own kind of. So it's really Jade's trajectory makes it very interesting. It makes it very difficult to book because you want her to start having some bigger wins, right, Bonds? Yeah. But at what expense? And because I don't think that the women's division right now with Deeb still on the shelf, with Thunder Rosa's contract situation, Anna Jay still on the shelf, the women's division's not deep enough yet to sacrifice somebody like a Statlander at this point, personally.
True, that makes a good sense. And I just typed in the comments, Swole is back as babyface now. And so you could put that, or like Kylan King. I know she's not necessarily an established, women's star right now, but I was thinking of after her re-debut when we saw it live, Crayfish, where is Rio at?
That's what I'm saying, man. I think that
she's been gone again.
I really like Riho. I like what I see out of her in the ring. I think that she's a natural babyface. I would love to lean into some aesthetic like that. Yeah. Personally, I miss there's a lot of stars that are not in the AW's women's division that have been kind of lacking. I really miss Serena Deeb, man. I think that Serena Deeb, even though she's kind of NWA property, I think that Serena Deeb is such a star and such a great glue, kind of like the Bret Hart of a women's division. I really like her and like what she brings to the table. Bonds, gun to your head, what do you think happens after this interview? Do you see any physicality coming out of it? Do you see who do you see being Jade's manager, and where do you see Jade going from here?
Man, it's tough to guess because there really hasn't been any clues. It would be a straight up guess at this point for me.
Valid.
Anybody who comes in, I think that you would be stupid to get physical with Jade, which would be cool. It would start up a new feud. I don't think it's going to be Red Velvet again. I think that's probably that ship sailed.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen again. So honestly, I don't want to speculate because it would just be a straight up
guess. Good call.
It's
good call.
Straight up guess, and it's not worth just guessing.
You just be throwing a dart.
I'm excited for it. I
like it.
Speaking of, we were saving this for you, Bonds. We wanted to talk Miro. We're going to shift gears into your top guy.
No speculation needed here now, Bonds. There's no backing out of this one, brother.
If you guys haven't read the column on AEW-DynamiteDownload.com, make sure to check out. Bonds has got some, ties in a lot of great points and a lot of great comedy in there as well too. So you got to read it like you're like Bonds is telling it. So, but Miro, man, I predict, and I want Miro to do a Brody Lee style squash on either. I mean, Darby could sell kind of that injury.
Yes,
but I want Darby to have
smart what they did. That was smart.
Zero offense in this match, and Miro just beat him in 3 minutes.
So it'll just be a quicker, normal Darby match.
True. It won't be the 90-10 that we see.
It'll be the Darby match minus the 10% where he gets the win, that he comes back at the end. That's I know that we're all joking about it.
Right.
I try really hard with the Darby topic. Even I am the conductor on this one. I do try really hard on the Darby topic to keep things positive because I like to pride ourselves on being that positive brand. And I think that does make us stand out. And I know that positivity, we're starting to try to get some traction. I know that negativity is always gets more clicks.
Yeah.
But I view this as important, right? I think that Darby, it's important to acknowledge that Darby's run has allowed some guys to get opportunities that haven't had it, and they've shined. 10, John Silver, we could go through that list. But I'm with you guys on this. I'm 100% with you. I cannot, even as the conductor of the Darby positivity train, I think that all the pieces are coming together. All Ego and Scorpio Sky tossed him down the stairs. Darby tweeted out, basically, my shoulder or my elbow is basically effed. I mean, Darby was saying, my elbow is done. Like
There's
he
no
already
Sting behind him.
He already kind of has that. Sting's been drove off. There's a lot of like things, and Miro. We're all on board with the Miro train. Bonds, you've been just absolutely. You got me in it, brother. Yes, sir. I mean, you got me on board with that. I really like that idea of Miro wrecking him, and I think it could go really well, right? I think Darby can still play into what we've seen out of him, where that scrappy babyface underdog who continues to try to, no matter what, get tossed around and come back and win. I think that this story would be beautifully told if this is the one time where like he can't do it. He can't do it, and Miro just game over.
What
right?
a better person than Miro. I mean, honestly, it's perfect.
Oh yeah. And I think that they're establishing a way to protect him with this Ethan Page stuff and Scorpio Sky. Like they're protecting him with this. This is smart booking because they're like, okay, he's now if he gets destroyed, it's not going to look as bad because he's got one arm.
Good call.
And if he can't wrestle, he loses his title. So he's basically being forced to wrestle.
He's a hero,
Miro, no matter what.
He's a hero just for making it out there, right?
True.
Right, exactly. So he's going to go over no matter what happens here, and that's what's good about it. It's smart. So when Miro is the TNT champion next week, and doing jump ropes with Darby Allin, like in the match, it's going to be good for everybody because again, Miro needs that title. He needs something to push him because so far his AEW run has been kind of like a wet blanket for a lot of people. A lot of people are really excited and they've been frustrated, and I understand that. He's kind of been in some interesting stuff, and I think that though now he's focused on the gold. People want to see that. I want to see that because I've been a fan of him since his WWE days, obviously, and it's coming, guys. It's coming this week. He's gonna be. You saw what he did to Kip Sabian.
Well, that's what
you
just mentioned, the wet blanket thing, and I think that's a good call because it's like Miro came in and legitimately felt like, holy smokes, this is a guy who could transform the landscape.
Huge signing, and
then because he was paired as the best man for Sabian, it was almost like he was Sabian's sidekick for a while, and now that he completely destroyed Sabian and broke his arm and put him on the shelf. Now it's like, all right, that wet blanket that's gone, bro. Like it's time. It's time. Like I'm with you, Bonds. Like go all in on the Miro train. Let this guy showcase what he's capable of. The violence, the brutality. Like this dude is a physical freak. I mean, he's as like for me, he's one of the more fun guys to watch, and it's because of like. Bonds, I love hearing your scouting reports on the different talents. And this is a guy who you and I over the years have talked a lot about. A physical powerhouse who can go with anybody, any body style that he's in the ring with, any opponent that he's in the ring with, he can make. And that's what's great about Miro as champion, guys. And like Darby's reign was the opposite. Darby was so small that his best matches were with guys who were smaller too, right? Like Scorpio Sky, Jungle Boy, those like John Silver. These are some of his best matches. Whereas if you put Miro in the ring, he's proven, dude. Like you could put him in a match with a guy the size of Lance Archer or Brian Cage, or you can put him in the ring with a guy like Jungle Boy, and he'll be able to. He's a pro. He can make it work with anybody, and I think that's what you need for a TNT champion. You need a guy who, regardless of contender, is going to be a believable champion and put on great matches. And that's what I think is going to be a nice transition. And like you said, Bonds, it needs to happen to give Miro purpose, right? This is going to fulfill his destiny and take him to another level. And it's about time. And SPD, I know, even though you're not the biggest Darby fan, you yourself have even said, this dude is so unique. Like you love his vignettes. You love the way he presents his character. This is a guy who he's a draw in and of himself because he's so unique and so outside the box. He's so not the normal prototypical wrestler. He's not a 260-pound jacked guy. He's he's kind of got that like enigma, like that outsider charisma to him that doesn't need a title to make him worth seeking out for fans, right?
I agree. I was talking in the chat with, I think Darby has a great draw for the fans. Clearly he's drawing numbers for the ratings, but the title isn't necessary on him. I think you can continue that awesome draw of him, just his uniqueness and his enigma and his pairing with Sting is enough draw. And then you have Miro just have this whole nother draw because he's carrying the belt. And like I said on the show, like, the TNT title needs to be defended, win, and lost on TNT, not necessarily paid. So that's where we're going to see it in a few short days. Miro gets first gold on his waist. I'm so behind it, and we all are.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Well, now that we talked about that, and we all kind of are on the same page, and SPD, I loved what you said on our post show and at Blood and Guts.
Blood and Butts.
Was that the TNT channel?
That's a little highlight. That's a little highlight from
the TNT
column.
You said Blood and Butts. That was funny. I was literally laughing out loud when I saw that. The TNT Championship should change. It would be a great moment for Dynamite if the TNT title changes hands on TNT rather than a pay-per-view. I love that point by USPD. You're always like watching for the tunnel and all that stuff. Those little moments like that, I think that would be a great idea. Save this for later, the Blood and Butts, because I want to talk about QT. But acknowledging that we all agree that maybe the TNT title is going to change hands next week at Dynamite, are there any titles that you see potentially changing hands at Double or Nothing?
So that's a good segue. Like, we should talk, title changes other than the women's, and like how, like we said, how we're gonna
other than the women's. Hey, I know there's a lot of people out there who are arguing with me that Shida should still remain champion.
So I'll start with title changes, and then we can kind of let's fantasy book the card. Number one, I'm here in Vegas this week, and I'm not a betting guy. But if I was, I would put money on the DMD taking the title at Double or Nothing. That being said, I don't see the Young Bucks losing, and I don't see the TNT title being essentially defended and lost. Miro's not going to be losing this anytime soon, at least not within weeks of the title, and Kenny Omega is not losing. So the title change that will change is the women's one. We're going to see a dangly of a match, I'm sure, at Double or Nothing, which so for title changes.
Oh my gosh.
I'll ask you guys, do you think any title changes? And then let's start booking the card. So me, it's just the women's. All the other 3 ones are not going to change.
I agree. I don't think that TNT title is going to change twice. If it changes with Miro, I don't think it's going to happen again that quick. I don't. Britt, I think, needs the title, and I think it's coming. It just makes sense logically.
And that's a
Kenny's
big
not
enough moment.
Orange Cassidy either, so
that's a main event moment for sure.
Absolutely,
she was the first woman signed with AEW, and that's
a moment we've all been clamoring for. So I think that would be like, for a big pay-per-view, that would be the cathartic moment for a lot of fans to see Britt finally ascend to the top of the women's division. I think that would be a really big moment, and it would be one of those, okay, like if none of the other titles change hands, that would give everybody that satisfaction, like, okay, the belt that we wanted to see change, it did. The only other one that I could see happening is potentially the tag titles, depending on who emerges as those challengers. I do think that it's going to be Moxley and Kingston.
Right.
Is SCU going to wrestle them next week, or are they wrestling
next week? Yeah.
Next week.
Yeah, and so the
Bengals versus SCU,
and so like the heat on the Bucks is going to be so hot after that, because they're gonna be putting away the first ever AEW tag champions. They're gonna be putting them on the shelf. They're gonna be like, and that they're gonna be making like all their new updates to their bios on Twitter. They're gonna be just rubbing it in all of our faces about what they did, and kind of like it's gonna be insufferable. So I could potentially see that, especially. I mean, like we've seen, like I watched Impact again, and like watching the Good Brothers. A part of their story is kind of like and I know that this hasn't played out much on AEW television right now, but kind of the story that was getting played out on Impact is like, we can't be losers if we're the elite, right? Like we're the elite. We can't be a bunch of losers. And the Good Brothers have kind of been on this losing streak a little bit, and like kind of muddle, which we're fine with. We're totally cool with. But the Good Brothers have kind of been like struggling. And I don't see this happening, but it would make sense from a story perspective to further compound that. If the Bucks lost the belts, then it's like Kenny and all these other guys that are kind of like falling apart. Their careers are kind of struggling, but Kenny's continuing to ascend. And I know, Bonds, you love Don Callis, and like, would Don start planting more seeds of dissent and stuff like that, right? Like, that could be an interesting story.
Yeah,
I could see that potentially happening, because down the road, guys, like who become like, somebody's going to take the belt off the Bucks, I personally think like we got to start to see FTR get involved again with the tag titles, and we want to see Santana Ortiz get involved. There's some stuff there that the Bucks title reign, again, like, do they need the belts? Do they need them? And a lot of it has.
I think it's so great.
So much of the Bucks have been like character first and tag titles second. Mm-hmm. I feel like the presentation of the Bucks since 2021 really has been like they've had story first and tag titles second. And as a tag team fanatic, I'm sorry, like, I want to see the tag titles be the draw. I want to see the tag titles be a big part of what makes this show tick. And so you're not going to have the Bucks go against teams like FTR and Santana Ortiz and all these types of this deep division,
right,
and put them down. You got to eventually transition the belts off of them. So I don't know. I could see that happening, but at the end, I think I'm with you guys. I think that all the titles are going to stay the same except for the women's championship.
So I think you make a great point. I think we're not even close to the dissension of the elite of, Young Bucks losing and things like. They're just getting started, and so the Young Bucks. I mean, it's hard to predict. I mean, like I said on our show on Wednesday, the top 5 ranking teams like 2 months ago, none of those teams were in that for the tag division. You saw like FTR and Ray Phoenix and Pac at the top and different ones like that. So it's really hard to predict of like the feud. Like down the line, you need to put like a red hot baby face to take them away. Like maybe Best Friends down the line would do that. That makes sense. But as of right now, in the landscape of today's feud, it doesn't make sense. But it could in a few months' time after this Moxley
match.
Yeah. What a big win that would be, though, for like the Young Bucks, right? Putting down Moxley and Kingston. I mean, that would be a huge.
They could get the belts. I mean, that would be in compelling, tag, an uncharacteristic tag team to take the belts away from the Young Bucks, which could work for sure. And then the heels are just getting to be more and dirtier and just more whiny and wanting to get those belts back. And I could see them winning them back from them versus a different team winning them back, which we don't really see in AEW. We see long reigns
typically.
But this would work for that character. So that being said, let's talk. Put together a couple matches. We talked about this a few weeks ago, but now that we're getting closer to Double or Nothing, what are some matches that really are intriguing that aren't announced so far? Yes, we're predicting Kenny and OC.
Yep.
Obviously, the women's title match. I think we kind of on the same page. We're predicting, Young Bucks, Young Bucks, Moxley, and Kingston.
Yes.
So other than those 3, what do you see as a match that you would be very compelled to see?
Bonds, I'll let you take the lead.
Okay. I'd like to see Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky versus Darby and Sting.
I love that.
That could be Darby's return after, he loses his title, if that happens this week. Right. If Darby when Darby loses his title, like that'll be like the revenge match on a pay-per-view, and that'd be a really cool match. I think a lot of people are fans of Ethan Page. I personally think he's really, really funny.
I'm with you, bro.
They could have some really good promo battles leading up to that, and then kind of get in the ring. Because right now all their stuff has been like interferences after matches, or just in a random segment when Darby attacks them, and then they're like, oh, we'll just 2-on-1 and beat you up and throw you downstairs. So actually get them in the ring would be cool. On pay-per-view would be big because again, Darby Allin's one of the biggest stars.
You got Sting.
Yeah, Sting. You have Sting, you have Darby. And also being in a tag match, you kind of protect Sting a little bit as well.
Yep.
So it's just smart. I think that would be a really cool match. And plus, that would be a big rub for Sky and Ethan Page too, because you're getting them in there with a legend and a guy that's really popular among the fans. So it makes a lot of sense. I love your idea. I think Penn has a cool one too, throwing Lance Archer in there. That's kind of cool. And that certainly would, that would play off of, man, I would love to see Lance Archer get his hands on Ethan Page. So that could be cool. Bonds, I like where your head's at. For me, two natural things jump out. So,
I'm waiting for it.
I'm all in on this QT Marshall.
Where's that shirt, bro?
Oh, dude, it's at the cleaners, getting pressed, getting nice and tight and crisp. I got to keep that thing beautiful. That's my only bowling shirt right now, so I got to keep it in press.
You got to get you a new wardrobe.
QT's got a whole closet full of those things, but I only have one, so I got to keep it in good shape
for now.
But that I love that feud. I love what QT Marshall is doing. I think that whole thing, that I am leading the charge on that. I love where that's going. I personally, I think that Cody versus Anthony Ogogo is that is a home run match. It's going to be if you're going to put, and Bonds, you and I both are in lockstep on this. We think that Anthony Ogogo is another guy that could emerge as a real superstar on the landscape.
Got it all.
He does. He does.
It all.
Yeah. I think that he could really emerge as a real bona fide, huge international superstar for this company. And there's no greater litmus test than having that match with Cody, right? So I think that's a beautiful idea. I think that Cody is the utmost professional. So he's gonna make Anthony look like $1 million. And I think that just furthers that Factory versus the Nightmare Family feud, which I am just eating up. I just absolutely love it. And I could see QT getting his revenge by costing Cody the match in that one, right? I think that, that could be a really nice way for QT to get the last laugh. Even though he tapped out and showed ass to the whole world this last week at Blood and Guts.
Oh, Blood and Butts.
Blood and Butts. I think that would be a really smart way for QT to get that. And we hear, I was geeking out when the Anthony responded to us. I think, we're really loving what we're seeing out of him, not just as a competitor, but as a person. So I really love that. So that's one. I'd love to see the continuation of that feud. And then the other one, I'd love to see the continuation of the Pinnacle versus the Inner Circle. So
it has to, for sure.
I think that it wouldn't be an episode of Dynamite Download if I wasn't talking about the tag division and just gushing profusely over it. I want to see FTR versus Santana Ortiz so bad. I want to see that match.
I want to see that main event.
I love both teams.
Right.
I would genuinely be torn. I feel like I'm kind of more the bad guy of this crew, so I like the FTR.
You are such a heel.
I've loved the Revival since day one, and I think they're only getting better, which is amazing to think about. I think they're the best tag team in the world, and they're only getting better. As is testimony that SPD is now a Dax Harwood slappy. So I love it. So I would love to see, maybe you get to see that. Maybe you get to see MJF versus Sammy, which was thrown out there in our chat. Sammy trying to get revenge after what happened this last week.
That makes so much sense.
Sammy, you put it we talk about this, SPD. You love Sammy as that breakout baby face. And for him to surrender on behalf of his team to try to save Jericho, and then for MJF to do what he did anyway, it would be a really natural story for Sammy to say, okay, you clearly are a dirtbag. I'm going to beat some respect into you, MJF. And for him to like kind of take Chris Jericho's honor and almost like take the lead for the group of the Inner Circle while Jericho's on the shelf, I think that'd be a really cool story. I think that, so those are my like 3 matches that I would throw in there. And they're just continuations of feuds that I'm absolutely loving. But no bigger match for me than the DMD taking the title off of Sheeta. I just that's gonna make the whole pay-per-view. Shut up and take my money, baby. I'm just geeking out.
These are obviously there's so many intriguing things you can do. You know, just to right off the cuff, like talking like
Scoot. I just read Scoot's comment. Oh my god. Sorry. Speaking of bully shirts, yeah, go ahead. You're good.
First. We've been wanting Sammy versus MJF for a long, long time now, man. But it would be tough to do. And then, you know, I don't see MJF losing this soon. You know, the momentum was on his side. I almost think, you know, he's if he does fight, obviously he'll cheat to win, or he'll like cop out last minute and be like, Wardlow, take my spot or something like that. Ooh. You know, do something like that. But any match with those guys is going to be gold. You know, I think the Gogo and Cody is very, very intriguing. But it does make sense, you know, like we were talking in the chat, like more of a factory versus family big time feud. Or you can have, and you know, AEW always throws those multi-man matches. Like we need to get some Dark Order featured on this somehow, you know, John Silver's return, you know, something like that where it's like, and, you know, the HFO, you know, I saw on Twitter that Big Butch was wearing a hospital gown. So I don't know what's going on with him. I sent him a message online, but you haven't heard back. But I'm curious if everything's all right. I hope everything's all right with Big Butch because the HFO is a great feud. And, you know, we didn't even mention Hangman. Nope. You know, the ex-number-1 contender. Like, what are you going to do with that? We didn't even mention Brian Cage.
We didn't talk about Team Taz. You're right.
So much depth. It's crazy, man.
It is.
Brian Cage, like, I guess you could do a Taz versus Hangman and Dark Order thing. You know, it would still be interesting, but obviously it's not going to steal the anything could steal the show. But I mean, that's just to put some guys that we want to see on the card. But really, the Pinnacle, Inner Circle, and the Factory feuds are like the ones I'm most excited for right now. So anything with that, it's good stuff, man. So that is you're geeking out, bro.
I am, dude. I love hearing you talk about it, man. I am just so in on QT Marshall, dude. I love it. I know, like it's kind of cliche, but like I love hearing you like wax poetic about my guys that I'm geeking over. Like if you want to start transitioning into like just talking about how much you love Britt Baker, go ahead, man. I go just you want to just transition and. Oh yeah, baby! This is a throwback.
Who's that in the back there, Crayfish?
This is Mitch, baby. For those of you who are new, we got Mitch, Mind Runner. Jungle life.
We get 30 seconds before they kick us off.
Right,
before they cut us.
We don't want to get kicked off.
We don't want to be in trouble.
Time.
That was a big trending topic on Twitter too. Is like, oh gosh, copyright. You got to be careful. And everybody's trying to make out AEW to be heels, but we don't want to steal their content, right? We don't want that. You got to be.
Tony does that now, so it's
That's right. He'll pay whatever for it.
Oh gosh, man, what an awesome time! I've missed those dance breaks. Those are fun. We still got to mix those in. You know, hey, why don't we mix in a short dance break later, a throwback.
Okay, I know. I'll get it queued up
in honor of the birthday boy.
I'll queue it up and be ready for it when you're ready.
In honor of the birthday boy, let's do one later. All right.
That's a good. Call pen Cage versus Cage at Double or Nothing.
That would be interesting. Yeah. You know, I feel like that would be interesting a lot because Bonds, reading your column, and I feel like Taz is so weird on social media. Like he just tweeted out, "I farted" not long ago. Whatever.
I think that was
what?
Yeah, he just like Taz is so weird on social media. He only feeds the trolls, which is like whatever, man. But like, you are such a Taz fanboy. Yeah. I was hoping that he would finally latch on to the Dynamite download positivity. You were so on board with like Team Taz and trying to point out what an MVP Taz is on the mic for AEW. What do you see like Team Taz doing? I mean, like where do you see this going? I know that like you were really interested in this segment where Taz, the breakdown of Christian's tape, right? And I thought that you found that hilarious.
Yep.
Do you see Team Taz getting involved with Christian at the pay-per-view? I think that makes sense, not like based off of what's going on.
There's a natural progression for it. It might not be a pay-per-view match, but that would make a lot of sense. They've invested a lot of time into that storyline.
True.
Christian needs to have a match with these guys at some point. If Taz is going to keep egging him on, it's got to have a payoff. Agreed. So I don't know if the payoff's against Brian Cage. Again, we've seen some different like changes in Brian Cage recently as well. Like, so like his respect thing that he's done, which is cool. I think it's awesome. Like he's been like respectful to the veterans.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting. And honestly, like so did Hobbs after his match with Christian. Hobbs did the same thing. Like, hey, like that was an awesome match. Like my
which
respect
it was
or something on Twitter. So like there's some stuff like some dissension in Team Taz still. The only person that really seems on board with like Taz's moral compass is Ricky Starks and Hook. So it's like you have kind of like two conflicting sides of the stable. And that could play into it as well. I don't know if it's going to be Brian Cage versus Christian Cage. That would be a cool match. I would love to see that just because, we give a lot of praise to Brian Cage because he's been a guy that's been around for a bit and he's really talented and former TNA champion and like been around forever and great veteran. I think a guy like him would have a great match with Christian. But if Brian Cage is going more towards babyface, which I think is kind of what he's doing, I think he's kind of slowly transitioning to a babyface. I don't know if that match makes a lot of sense, but it might make sense right now. Because he's still a heel.
So Christian beat Hobbs,
right?
So do you see him going against Starks, or do you like? Because I don't know. I could see it being Cage, which was thrown out there. I could because it could be like it could further that story that you're talking about, right? Like if they have that amazing match,
push him over that edge.
It could make him that much like, oh man, if Christian comes out on top, it could be like, okay, like I don't know. I feel like it could maybe further that story of Brian Cage being humble and like gaining respect for the good guys of the business, maybe, and like the legends of the business. You
have to remember too, like Taz had that segment with Christian a couple weeks back where Christian said, "Hey, like your stable might be better off without you." And that might be what's getting played up here. If Christian does have a match with Brian Cage, beats Brian Cage, then it's like sell it home. Hey, you don't need Taz. Like you're probably better without him. He's dragging you down, involving you in these storylines you don't need to be involved in, kind of thing. And he could be kind of the one that breaks up the band. He could be their Yoko Ono, I guess.
It could be Cage and Cage. It could be Cage and Cage against Hobbs and Starks. Maybe
that'd be cool. They could be the Cages.
The Cages.
The Cages and the Pages.
That'd be
the Cages and the Pages. You're right, man. I like that.
Yeah, I saw I think on Twitter when they signed Christian, like the dream match was Ethan Page and Hangman Page versus Christian Cage and Brian Cage. And it would just be a nightmare on commentary.
I like it.
Cage.
And Nicolas Cage is the referee. And Page is on commentary.
Yeah,
the former WWE Women's Champion.
No, and Diamond Dallas Page is.
And Diamond Dallas Page too. They're both the commentators.
I love it, guys. I love it.
Oh, gosh. Oh, Page, yeah, they had a Cage.
Oh gosh, Cage with another move to the Page. Oh man.
So I got a curious question. Like,
all right,
it's hard to think of like all the stars, but like if you could pick any AEW stars ring attire. Like, if you were a wrestler, whose ring attire would you pick? And what do you like the most? Like, me, I'll start off with
Dingley's.
Well, because I was thinking because you got you and your QT Marshall shirts.
Oh, yeah, baby.
So and because it's at the cleaners getting pressed. So,
yes, of course, got to keep it crisp.
Me would be hands down, Jericho, because he is the jacket god, and I like his awesome black pants and his boots, and he's always got the jacket god. He's the jacket god for sure. So Jericho's ring attire would be the one I would want it for me and want to mimic. I would want his ring attire to wear every day, just as walking down the street, man.
Cool.
I was shocked you didn't talk about the Young Bucks, man, with those danglies, bro. I mean, the Young Bucks got some new style.
They got those their $10,000 Dior's, and the light up Jordans.
Son. Yeah. Bob, what about you?
Jericho.
I might pick Eddie Kingston because I can just wear that all the time. He's got his shirt on, his pants. I could just wear that out. I could wear that to the wrestling ring and then just go out and be like, okay, I'm good. I don't have to change my clothes. I can just do my own thing. But if I'm another one though, for me, it would be the Bucks, I think, because they just look so stupid, and I would think it'd be funny to dress like that.
You've been loving that in your column, dude. You've been loving how increasingly stupid their stuff, their gear,
great.
and their look has been.
It's awesome.
JD Drake
and just leaning into it, with Matt was talking on their new bio, talking about how he waxed his legs, and SPD last week fresh off the heels of Blood and Guts. You were talking about how Matt Jackson was wearing the seashell necklace that we all wore in middle school. That was awesome. Yep. I love that. For me, oh man, I like the War Dogs singlet. I think that's a cool look. I think this last one in particular. Yes, I like and kind of if you're a diehard long-term fan of Dynamite Download, if you dial it back to the beach episode, I don't mind covering up this upper body. I don't mind it a little bit, but I like the singlet look. I think that's kind of cool, and I think Wardlow kind of having that airbrush kind of takes me back to the RVD. The RVD's airbrush singlets are so sick, dude, back in the day. So I like that vibe a lot.
Crayback.
Yeah, I like that. Crayback, baby.
That's right.
So, that would be my first pick off the top of my head, man. I love the War Dog, baby.
That's good. Yeah, honorable mention.
Penta. Ooh, that's a good look. If I could bring out the Batman mask and all that stuff, I love that call. Nice pick, dude. I like that one a lot. That's definitely sick.
Yeah, Kenny Omega's got some stuff. Cody Rhodes always has some nice
great gear.
Great gear for sure. Peter Avalon's got a nice robe, so
his bed comes with it. That bed looks super comfortable.
That's true.
Yeah. I love it. Show again. I'll fall asleep and miss the show again.
That's a great question, SPD. I like that.
Yeah. Do you got any non-traditional wrestling questions that are burning in your mind? That I've been thinking about this for a while, man.
Yeah, I could tell with how attention to detail your fashion is today with those danglies. You got them all over your face right now.
Yeah, I got them on the SPD shades. I got them in my ear.
I love it, man.
When we go to Dynamite, we'll bring some danglies, some bowling shirts.
Some
baby, shell necklaces.
Yes, sir.
What else could we bring?
I will be
a Burberry scarf.
We just have to dress as stupid as possible.
Just as many Mark outfits as possible. Burberry scarf, danglies, bowling shirt.
Yes, sir. I like that.
And then the Ray-Bans for Kenny Omega / Orange Cassidy.
Orange Cassidy's got a good look too, man. He's got those
Canadian tuxedo.
Those look like very comfortable jeans. They kind of those are the types of jeans that you want to wear when you're going to a nice big meal. I like that. It's really
stretchy.
The stretchy jeans, and those shades are always on point. I like that. That's cool. That's a good question by you.
Yeah. Do you think someone who needs a ring attire makeover, I mentioned JD Drake just jokingly, but he got a makeover and he looked way better when he was versus Darby's match. Him in his just plain black singlet, didn't really work. He kind of looked like a jobber, but then when he got some more different attire, and it was strange seeing him on Dark, it looked like almost last minute, they just threw some knee pads over his jeans. Did he forget his ring gear or what? What's his?
They're wow, this works.
And the commentators were talking they're laughing about his old Lee jeans that cost $16 or whatever.
Yeah.
I love Excalibur and Taz on commentary and on Dark because they're so
funny.
They're loose.
You can tell they're having a good time.
Yeah. They're so loose. And granted, I'm sure they're on there till sometimes 3 a.m, they said, and they're getting like, slap happy.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I also got to give I like the Varsity Blondes. I like what they've been doing with their gear. And I think that's been kind of cool. Maybe I'm just feeling a little nostalgic for Brian Pillman after watching Dark Side of the Ring, but I like what they've been doing. If you're talking about like competitors that need a makeover or need like something, a different look, man, that's a good question too. Bonds, anybody jump out at you, bro?
And it's tough to think about it. Again, that's a think on that and look at everybody's gear.
I know.
I mean, I do kind of. Some of the looks are kind of funny. Like Eddie Kingston's one, I kind of joked about, and that's something that could change. Like having the shirt on during the match is something we've always kind of. I mean, I remember we used to talk about Kevin Owens. We're like, oh yeah, WWE has him wrestle with a T-shirt on, and it's like, oh, like come on, like don't make the guy wrestle with a T-shirt on. It's kind of like a bad look. Like you don't make Samoa Joe do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If you're gonna
it's like kind of one of those things, but nobody really sticks out as like. Has like terrible ring.
If you're gonna put me on the spot, I feel like Jungle Boy needs a little bit of a different look. His trunks are like the dude's wearing. It's like he's almost wearing like a thong. Like it's just his trunks are weird, man.
They fit weird.
It really accentuates his junk. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. It's a weird look.
Just wear a loincloth, man. It's Jungle Boy.
It's jarring. It's just jarring. Outside of that, man. Nobody else jumps out at me big time. Like
everyone fits really well their personality. I mean, like just looking at like the Acclaimed and the Dark Order and the Private Party, all those guys and the Butcher and Blade, man, they always do some great stuff. Santana Ortiz, like all these guys that like they got it knocked down. I mean, locked down for sure. So I wasn't a fan of the QT Marshall bowling shirt at first, but now I am.
You love it. I love it.
I need to purchase one myself, man. So
get on board, brother. Get on board before it's too late, because this
they're gonna be sold out, man.
This QT Express is coming, brother. It's coming.
You're the conductor.
You know it. You absolutely know it, bro. I like that. Oh man. So any questions that have been stewing in your mind, Bonds? Anything that's been like fascinating to you over the course of the last week?
After Blood and Guts.
All right, next beer.
After Blood and Guts, I was pondering what's going to be next for Inner Circle. Are they going to? I mean, obviously, I don't think this feud's dead. I think it's going to be it growing, but I also think that Chris Jericho has to be on the shelf for a little while. You can't just have him come right back after that. So, what are your guys' thoughts? Like, are they going to build Sammy up as this guy? Because again, I noticed that as well. Like, he's the one that quit or surrendered. You know what I mean? He surrendered. He also was like the Iron Man for them in that match. He started off the match, and he was like the guy the whole time.
Yep.
And he like in that one-on-one part with Dax, he was clearly the guy that won that one-on-one section.
That springboard stunner, whatever. Like, oh my gosh, it was awesome.
Oh, it was crazy. He had a bunch of great spots. I would say the best spots in the match were Sammy spots, all of them. He was the guy. It just looked great. Other than until the end, where it was MJF and Jericho.
He was SPD's top performer for that reason, Bonds. I mean, he stole the show.
He did. So, like, what do you guys think is next? Do you think that Sammy's going to kind of take that leadership role for a little bit, or? Oh my gosh, it was brutal.
Yeah.
Well, I think that this year, like, certainly, like, we all felt like with his dissension from the Inner Circle, maybe that was the writing on the wall for him to have that breakout babyface run.
Mm-hmm.
But now I feel like even with him being a part of the Inner Circle, and now that they've all turned face, Sammy certainly is in that key position. I think that he's clearly – it's not going to be Hager. Santana and Ortiz, although I think Santana has really emerged for a lot of folks out there as a guy who has that star potential, can cut an amazing promo, kind of has a good look and all that stuff. He's a part of a tag team. Sammy clearly is emerging as that next in line. It's a good call by you, man. I think that Sammy could really transcend, and I like where this could go with MJF. I mean, that like all the long-term storytelling of AEW of this was really about Sammy and MJF. Sammy knew MJF was a backstabbing SOB from the beginning, and he kept trying to warn the rest of his teammates, like, guys, this guy is not good for us. So it would be a really nice way to tie the bow of this whole story to allow Sammy to get to SPD. I remember going back early on when you and I used to talk on Dynamite Download about this feud, for Sammy to be the guy who puts that loss, a definitive.
I said that months ago, right?
I know. I remember you called it a long time ago. What an amazing moment that would be if Sammy was the guy who gave MJF his first definitive, very clean,
right,
very profound, big moment loss on MJF's record, because MJF, to his credit, 2-time Dynamite Diamond Ring winner.
He doesn't get any Dynamite Download rings. All he gets is he gets to get the swirly shits. The MJF, that's for sure.
Yeah, if only I was high and not a part of our interviews, maybe he would join us. But he just that said, he swore to us that he will never be on Dynamite Download. He will never join us because we're too positive, too nice of guys. No,
we don't have an orange enough spray tan.
That's right. I would love to see.
We need to work on that.
SPD, maybe you can try to, I know you are very big on the spray tans. You called out Matt Jackson on his the one week. Maybe you could bring that out for us one week. I think that would be a good look, especially for your auto shows. I think that would be a really big thing. People would love that with the Bronco. You could maybe
what we should do is
debut the new orange,
the spray tan orange
color. Yeah, I like it.
When we go to Dynamite, we can see if we could bring in cans of spray tan and have a sign that says free spray tans. We give people a spray tan.
Yeah,
that's how we get
MJF sponsored.
MJF
sponsored spray tan. That would be a great call. I like it.
We need to bring some signs that will just mark out to the MJF and those heels for sure.
Well, I know Sharonico. Maybe we'll meet. Like, that's one of the things. Like, I love when you get to see these fans that are diehards and go in week after week after week. Man, do I wish I lived in Florida during this period, because I would love to go. It's $20 to go to an episode of Dynamite. How do you beat that? Like, it's just ridiculous. So I would love that.
Free parking.
Yeah. But Bonds, I love that idea. I love that Sammy could emerge in that. One of the biggest pet peeves that you had in that match was the commercial breaks. And the biggest one that hurt that match, I felt, was the Wardlow moment. Speaking of my favorite gear, go ahead, do it one more time, SPD. Yeah, the Ward Dog, baby. It his moment when he fought the entire inner circle. It was like the whole time was picture in picture, man. It was like,
I agree.
So I could see the War Dog being. I want to see that. He was my pick. Going back to our initial. All right,
I like that idea. If
Britt doesn't win, I will get a spray tan. I will do it. If Britt does not win, put it in the books. If Britt does not win,
all right,
I will get an MJF spray tan. I'll ask them to double up so that I have streaks down this bald head of mine. I'll be all over it.
Oh, wow.
I'll lean into it so they get the shiny head. No,
it's on the table.
That's my big thing. I think that
Giuliani.
I want to see Wardlow. I want to see Wardlow emerge more, man. I want to see that out of this feud. I think that that match, I know that everybody's talking about Sammy and Dax and his workhorseman performance.
Another repost by him too,
Wardlow truly feels like a special event whenever he's in there, dude. And I don't know if that's on purpose or what, but it feels like he's emerging as the Brock Lesnar of AEW. They just need to start putting him in bigger stakes circumstances on his own, man. I want to see the War Dog unleashed.
He's only had one singles match in 2021, and I was there, January 6th versus Hager.
Lucky.
One singles match in 5 months.
Come on. Oh, the fans out there in our chat are chopping at the bit. Now everybody's wanting Sheeta to win. This is hilarious. I love it.
All right, so I think talking this through, you continue. Sadly, it makes sense for storyline purposes for Jericho to be off TV, but he's such a valuable asset. Obviously, he's risking it all for the company, as MJF said in that promo. Like, if he doesn't succeed, the people in the back don't eat. Like, all that pressure on Jericho, and it's true. I mean, if you're 50 years old and the GOAT, and you're taking a bump off the cage like that, regardless if it's on, the perfect pillow or anything, I'm not taking that bump. At any age, it's crazy. So he said it time and time again. He's a leader by example. He'll risk it all for the company, the business, everything. So I love Jericho's aspect of that. That being said, this feud will continue. Hopefully, we have to get a promo out of it this next week, in kind of an update. Maybe we don't hear from Inner Circle, but we definitely will hear from MJF, because you have to continue to build that. And then you trade some matches. It could be, trios matches, singles matches. Then ultimately you build to Sammy versus MJF. Don't rush that. Build it. Sammy wins. Jericho comes out to celebrate with him.
Ooh.
After Sammy's kind of carrying it a while, maybe Sammy takes a win over. Maybe Sammy takes a win over Dax. Maybe Sammy takes a win over Cash or Spears. Spears as well. So Sammy starts to pick up some momentum. Then ultimately he goes for MJF, and he takes on MJF, gets him the loss. Inner Circle stands tall. The jacket god, the demo god, comes out to congratulate him, and the Inner Circle is back in black in full force on the winning side of things.
I like where your head's at, man. I think that makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of ways that you can go with this feud, and that's what's exciting about AEW, is that they continue to do those things. They continue to we always talk about it, the breadcrumbs, the trail of breadcrumbs, man. I love that. That's fantastic. Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, thinking about the landscape of AEW, guys, and really, for me, I feel like this last week, I've really been vocal about what I see the star power in Ethan Page. Are there any dark horse guys on this roster that you could see emerging as future stars in this company? And that's I know this is a broad topic, but I think that AEW has been around long enough now that we kind of all know who's been established, right, as key players and where they're going. But are there some, who is the one person that you could see that maybe isn't quite there yet, but who can emerge as that next star for the company?
I
know, tough question. Maybe.
I got one.
Go ahead.
So a couple, actually. This is not a knock on where they are now, but I think the potential could be even pushed even more. But I think you have 10 for one.
Great
Preston
call.
Vance for
Great
one.
Pick.
Max Caster for another.
Great pick.
They're there now and entertaining now, but they can definitely step it up like 5 notches and just be a complete skyrocketed star.
I agree.
And Luther. No, I'm just kidding. Luther's got his place. He's got his place for sure. No knock on him. I love when he screams really high pitch. I think it's actually pretty funny, and his stuff on BT is pretty funny. So no knock on him at all. I think
those are two fantastic picks by you.
I'll leave it as that.
I really like both picks. I think that,
and of course Sammy.
Casters, I love you calling that out, man. I really like his potential long term. Bonds, do you have anybody that jumps out at you?
Yeah, I see Daniel Bryan vibes in John Silver. I get Daniel Bryan vibes from him, like a guy that's a little undersized. Yeah, a little undersized. The fans love him. Excellent in the ring. Just a great athlete.
Underrated in the ring.
Somebody that can just go, and he's really funny. You could always build him up as somebody that's just like really funny on the mic. Like his stuff he says is just goofy. He's just a goofy guy, and I like it. It's interesting. Another guy, Anthony Gogo, is somebody that I really like. His promos are awesome. He's got a built-in like real story that's like his actual life, and that's always more interesting when you have somebody that can just go and be like, "This is my story. This is something you can look up and see. This is true." And I'm going to go out there and dominate because this is my motivation. I'm motivated by my life. So he's got like a built-in self-motivation and legitimacy as like an athlete. a shoot athlete who's like huge in Europe, like big time, like everybody knows his name over there. So he could be a guy that helps AEW, not just in the United States as a star, but definitely over there. And he might have a completely different reaction from people across the pond. So that's just a couple guys off the top of my head. Those, I think that both of them are definitely top guys down the line. I really like both guys.
I mean, I'm not going to extrapolate on that. I think both of you guys nailed it. I think you guys absolutely named guys that were on the top of my mind. I totally agree with both of you. And I think the reasons why is because you got those, you have blends of charisma, mic skills, natural story with a Gogo. I love that with what you mentioned. I would only throw maybe one more name out there. I do think that Powerhouse Hobbs has long-term real big potential if they want to continue to build him. One more thing, Bonds, before I throw it over to you. Knowing how much I love QT Marshall now that he's transitioned into heel, if you could flip-flop one person on the roster, or maybe one or two, whatever, from their babyface or heel, like we've seen. I mean, QT Marshall went from being like a babyface that all of us were kind of like to being a heel that is just like right. Yeah. If you could flip flop character designations for one or two people on the roster, SPD, you talked about it earlier with Max Caster. You could potentially see him becoming a babyface, kind of like with just his natural charisma. Who would be those characters? Women's division or men's? Just throwing it off the cuff.
I mean, I think we're kind of seeing that changeover as Cage into a face is going to be a lot of fun.
Brian Cage, yeah, good call.
Sure.
Good call.
So I think that one is going to be very intriguing for sure.
And I love that.
I would be curious to see, Mr. AEW himself, Cody Rhodes, how he would act as in AEW.
Ooh.
He's a top baby face, but you always, people who can work both ways, are special. So I think that
Stardust and be just an epic hero.
Right. I mean, let's be real, guys. I mean, there's a lot of changes that are happening in the AEW landscape, right? I mean, like you're seeing the Young Bucks turn into heels. You're seeing QT Marshall transition into that. You're seeing the Inner Circle transition into baby faces. I mean, I feel like this is a really poignant, important topic to talk about because you're seeing the landscape of AEW really change in a lot of ways. Bonds, Scorpio Sky, right? I mean, Scorpio Sky was a babyface, and now he's turning heel. Yeah. Is there anybody that jumps out to you?
One that I'd love to see is Jade as a babyface. Even though she's not really she's kind of like a borderline right now anyway. And even though she does do heelish stuff, she's not like a bad guy heel. Like she's not like I'm gonna beat you up kind of the guy. She's not like that. She's like she's kind of just confident. It's her confidence that makes her that way. And I think that it would also work as a face, a baby face. She could do that kind of similar thing. It would take very small tweaks to her character, very small. And she could just really flip that switch and get the crowd behind her. And I think that really somebody like her would go over really well as, just a freak athlete who's just bigger and stronger than everybody. A Goldberg type push. Again, right. Somebody who's Goldberg was a baby face. People chanted for him and counted his match, counted down his matches, or it was great.
137-0 or something crazy.
That would be something similar.
Right. I love those picks, guys.
Jeez. What about you, Crayfish?
Me?
Sure. Yeah.
Honestly, when I look at the landscape of the AEW roster, I kind of want to see some changes happen. I mean, you guys named some great picks on the men's side. I honestly I'm starting to see some needs on the women's division for some shakeups. I think that you need to see a big transition, a big change, something dramatic to happen. So I honestly think that the DMD, she's starting to become more and more popular with fans. I don't want her to lose her edge, but maybe she can dial back a little bit on that I don't know, the ego a little bit. I don't know. I like her potential long term. And I also think, guys, this is kind of off the cuff, but I think Frankie Kazarian, after the SCU breaks apart, I think that Frankie Kazarian has a lot of juice still left to squeeze. Great call. You guys just met. Wasn't even looking at that. I think that Kazarian
Pen has been on fire tonight.
Yeah, bro. I think Kazarian, if they lose that match and they break up, he would naturally have that anger in him and that fire in him. And I think that would be a really great way for him to end his career, is maybe a nice heel run. Kind of like having a little more edge to him, having a little bit more like frustration, fuel his motivation moving forward. I think that he could. I mean, I get it. Like, there's a lot of talent on the AW roster, but every time I see Kaz in the ring, I'm going to be honest with you, dude. Like, I think that he can go. I think that Kaz is every bit the athlete as some of these guys that are half his age. And I really think that would be a nice way to end his career. I loved that when he was leaning into that heel vibe against Christian, when he was challenging Christian about, like, you're here to outwork everyone, but when does the work start? I really liked that. And I think that Kaz, he could be a believable mid-level heel. I like that a lot. And I think that maybe if you gave him an opportunity at that, it would give him that one last push towards the end of his career. That would be really great to see as a fan of his over the course of his whole career. I think that would be good stuff. So yeah, just some stuff off the cuff there. I really like that idea.
Yeah, I agree.
You guys name some good stuff. Bonds, do you have anything before we wrap things up?
Yeah. So speaking of SCU, like, we obviously, think that they're probably going to be done here next week, unfortunately. But who are some tag teams? I know you're the tag team guy, Crayfish. Who are some tag teams that you guys see emerging as contenders down the line in the next 6 to 8 months? There's a lot of like mid-level teams right now that are kind of in the same boat. Like, I would say like Jurassic Express and the Acclaimed are kind of in the same level right now, and they're all kind of like borderline on championship contenders. Who are some teams that you guys think could end up being contenders for the Young Bucks or anybody else that wins those titles?
That's a great question. SPD, do you want to jump in, or you want me to take the lead?
Yeah, I'm thinking, man.
Okay.
That's a tough one.
Well, I love the tag division. So, I mean, for me, I think there's a couple that really jump out. I mean, I think that the Varsity Blondes are, every time they get an opportunity, I think that they continue to show that they're sponges. They get better every time that they get out there and they're in the ring. I like that. I like where they're going a lot. And again, maybe I'm biased because I was just finished watching that first episode of Dark Side of the Ring, but I really think that it would be cool to see those two kids get an opportunity to really get a legitimate run, where they have some established momentum, because this is a team that is, you could tell, scrapping and clawing and trying their best to really get over with the crowd. And I think they have something. I think they're onto something. They're really young. I get it. But I think that they have that charisma, that natural babyface vibe that you need to push them a little bit more. And then outside of that, dude, like, for me, I think that one more team that could jump out is the Acclaimed. I've been on the, like, ever since, and I think a lot of the work has happened with Bowens on the shelf, but with Caster and what they've been doing with their character work, I'm fully on board with the Acclaim.
They need to be featured more.
I really, really like what they do. Scoot throws a nice suggestion out there. I mean, I didn't even think about it, but they're awesome in the ring together, aren't they?
Very underrated.
And that goes into what you were talking about, SPD, about like needing the Dark Order to be featured more. Evil Uno and Stu Grayson, they are so smooth and flawless in their tag moves together, man. They're really talented together when you could throw them in the ring.
I mean, I miss Top Flight as like a young babyface crew to fun to watch. I miss them. I don't know status of the injury on that, but I've always been a fan of Butcher and Blade. So like, I think like
good picks.
Two extremes, like fun, high energy flips and all that. Mini Young Bucks-esque top flight, and then Butcher Blade, ground and pound, beast. Scary in the ring. So like those two teams, I really. Hopefully Butcher's all right and everything's good, and the whole HFO and the Hardy gimmick stuff is gold. So I wonder what's going on, because Hardy has been such a awesome addition to BTE and we haven't seen him much. So
yeah,
I hope that gets back in the mix of stuff, because that whole gimmick is great to me in gold.
Yeah, they've been kind of off TV. Or last week, obviously, and the week before, I believe, right? That's 2 weeks in a row without Hardy. So that's a little
been on like Dark and Elevation. I think
I don't want to see that. Obviously Matt Hardy's awesome, so that would be obviously a great thing to see. But I would say another team that I would love, Gun Club is one. I think that they're cool. I think that having them kind of be the first
ones.
Pen,
you guys are good job at the same time.
Telling you, this dude is on point, man. He's one of the best follows on Twitter and our social. I mean, he's very smart takes.
Thank you. You guys are
awesome, Pen. Thanks. But I was really impressed when they came out as the first ones to defend the Nightmare family in that match. So like they were the ones that went out there. They're the ones who were like, hey, we're gonna put ourselves on the line. They got beat up for it. And so it ended up kind of working out, like, and plus, they're Billy Gunn's kids, those guys are from a legendary, wrestler who's still around. You could have him almost become like do more of a manager role for them as well. If they got a push, long term, like, Billy could kind of be in their background and also wrestle with them sometimes as well in trios matches. So then you have like a setup to where you have, Colton and Austin, doing the tag team matches, and have Billy come in on the trios matches. And I think that'd be a really cool setup for them to have some really interesting matches. Plus, even some pop. They need it.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that too, Bonds. I mean, we hustle so hard to try to gain a little bit of those likes and that traction on social. Yeah. SPD, I know, like with how engaged you are on Instagram and stuff. Like, let's be real. The Gun Club, they're so. All the work that they've done to try to keep pushing the social media stuff for AEW.
So like fun.
When we were there live, like I lost my voice in the first like 2 minutes, and somehow like Austin and Colton, like they keep the energy up at a 12, at a 15, like they are just they are through the roof with their energy. And so I agree with you, man. Like I think that it would be a nice, like, good story for those of us who have been following AEW through the pandemic, through this whole like tough chapter of their existence, but without being able to tour. These are two kids that have really embraced whatever opportunity they've been given, like, and they've really tried to make it for themselves. And so to throw them a bone and to say like, all right, like we're gonna give you kids like an opportunity to really legitimize. I mean, their record, I mean, like, is phenomenal. So you add
undefeated.
You add their legitimacy of their father. I think it just I like that idea, Bonds. It's a really good call by you. The Gun Club is kind of off the radar in the tag division, but could be a team that could really and should really get an opportunity to emerge a little bit as 2021 goes forward.
Yeah,
I agree.
I love their stuff for sure.
Well, that's a great place to end. I know we ran a little long tonight, but it was a lot of fun. I'm glad to be back. Friday Night Flights, we took a little break last week because of Crayfish's birthday, and we had a wedding to go to. But thank you guys all for joining us. We're going to chat with you all week and all week on our social. You know where to find us online, on our Instagram.
Thanks to you guys who are out there sharing our content with your friends.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for that.
That awesome. Means a lot.
We really appreciate it.
Here are all our social handles. SPD, you always do a nice job of navigating that. Here's all our social handles. Please, if you have any friends who want to follow us, Bonds' column is always live on AEW Dynamite Download the next day after Dynamite airs. So get out there, read that stuff, check the videos, share them with your friends. We appreciate you guys more than you know. Here's to the weekend, fellas.
Blood and guts.
Blood and guts.
The last of the true hybrid.
Happy birthday, Angelico.
My headset's about to fall off.
Oh, you're gonna hurt yourself, crayfish.
One of the greatest entrances in AEW history, right here, baby.
Underutilized.
So, like, I wish the TH2 was getting that run, baby. You know I love me some
we forgot
dirtbag.
about them in our tag team.
Oh,
so
I didn't forget.
Push, man.
I love those fellas, man.